Okay, we are here and we're just going to do a quick sound check. Make sure everything is working all right. We've been back and forth in between different platforms doing some various podcasting this week. So we want to make sure that on this platform, we are doing what we're supposed to do here. um, and yeah, as soon as I get a little sound check and I know we're good, then we'll proceed with tonight's incredibly disturbing news we have. Okay, we got a sound check. We're good. Let's go. Let's get into this. We've got some pretty crazy news, and so I'm going to give some pretty crazy context and probably do this a little differently than what we normally do here. We're still getting started, so no one even knows what we do here. Anyhow, we usually cover South Georgia news. We very specifically cover investigations, missing person cases, and the like around the Lowndes County area. You will be able to see on our platform, we share various information on such, and in a lot of our lives, we do mention a lot of the missing people around that area. Tank Evans is one of the people that we do talk about, and we also talk about Paula and Brandon Wade. They've been missing from Valdosta, Georgia for over 2 decades now, and that's very very disturbing as well. There's a lot of other cases that we cover from the South Georgia area, so we'll be reporting more soon on those too. So that's kind of what we do here. For those who aren't normally tuning into our content, we hope that you'll come back and help us out to get the word out about some of the things going on in South Georgia that need attention. Tonight's topic, as everybody could see on the thumbnail coming in, it is Rodger Goddard. He is the city marshal and the code enforcer for the city of Douglas in Georgia, which is not very far from Valdosta. I don't want to say the exact distance, but it's very, very close. So a lot of people from the Lowndes area will also be aware of the area we'll be talking about tonight. So he was arrested today, the city marshal for the city of Douglas, who has a history as law enforcement, essentially. He was arrested. And we're going to stop right there. And before we go into anything else, I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to leave the comments open on all of our content that we share about this case. But there's one thing we're not going to do is we are not going to leave nasty comments. They will be deleted. If you leave them on a platform that we can't delete them, we just might have to block you depending how vicious this becomes. Hopefully it won't be, but you know how the internet can be. So we like to moderate and control any disparagement of the facts. Having opinions is fine. And if you disagree with us, that's okay. In fact, I welcome it. However, there is a way to disagree. We'll leave the comments open. If you are being malicious in your commentary and not just simply agreeing with your opinion, disagreeing with your opinion, then it's going to be deleted. So we have that. And here's why. This is going to be the other odd thing that I say tonight. If you aren't aware of the term DARVO, this is what it means. Deny their wrongdoing ever happened. We're talking about when a victim makes a statement about something. Deny their wrongdoing, that it ever happened. Attack the target for attempting to hold someone accountable. Reverse the roles by shifting blame. Claim to have been the victim yourself and claiming the accuser is actually the offender. This happens a lot with victims, and we want to just put that out there. So when you comment, keep that in mind. And we're also not going to be naming the victim that is involved in this case tonight. If that victim comes forward and contacts us at the Titletown Scanner and lets us know that they want to speak or they want to be heard and they want their name out there, that will change. And that's probably about the only way that will change. So that is another thing that will get your comment deleted. If you leave the victim's name in the comments or refer to them in a specific way that other people can identify them, yes, I understand that anybody can request the documents that we're going to be going over. However, from this platform, we won't be encouraging any type of behavior that is targeted at a victim, no matter what anyone's opinion is. In this case, in this situation, they are a victim. And that is how we will handle this and approach it. As we learn more, we will figure out how we proceed. All right. All of that's out of the way. Let's go forward. So the city marshal, as I said, Rodger Goddard, he has been arrested. He was arrested by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, the GBI, they're also known as, and he is, like I said, the code enforcement officer as well. He has a history in law enforcement. He does have post training you're going to hear about in some of this. Just to clarify, post training is the peace officer training that regular citizens, can apply to the academy and or just to police departments, and they can go through that post training, and that is essentially your peace officer training, law enforcement training, police officer training. Okay. So that is essentially a little piece of his history as employment with the city. You'll hear a little more about that too. This has been reported on a few media outlets at this point. Not a lot of details are out there. So we decided to pull the documents and take a look at what this was overall, the situation and what was going on. I was pretty disturbed by what I initially learned, and then way more disturbed after I read the documents. For tonight, for this live, we're going to go over the documents, and rather than put them up on the screen, right after we get done with this broadcast, we're going to put them out on Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And we'll also have them in one other location that we'll announce soon, but we'll definitely have them on our social media platforms for people to view. If you would like these documents emailed to you or anything else, please let me know. I am happy to share these, as I feel that the community should have plenty of information about what this is going on. Now, he's been charged with two things: giving a false statement, and he's also been charged with unlawful surveillance. Now, the unlawful surveillance, I'll just give a spoiler alert into the documents. He's been charged for putting a surveillance device on a citizen's vehicle, and you cannot do that without a search warrant, or essentially without a search warrant, but without a warrant to do so. You have to have a warrant to apply a device like that to a phone, to a car, to whatever you want to do. You can't just as an officer go and do that of your own volition because you feel like it needs to be done. That is what he is accused of doing, and there's a lot more to the story. So before I go over to the document, I went on Facebook and I was reading a few things, just wanted to get some commentary, see what the temperature was in Douglas regarding this arrest, and I was a little shocked. There's a lot of statements supporting him, and there is a lot of commentary about there's no way he's done anything wrong. People have never seen this document. People have no idea what the details are, and they're saying that that he hasn't done anything wrong. Family was also commenting about that they're proud of their son, and they're proud of this person. Well, let's talk about that real quick. It's okay to be proud of somebody, especially your kid. You should be proud of your kid. I hope you are proud of your kid. However, no matter how many good things someone does, it does not make them exempt from a crime if they commit it. These are allegations. We should all be standing in the middle, steadfastly in the middle on this. No one should be for or against him when it comes to this matter. Everybody should be waiting to see what the evidence is. What's the document say? What evidence led to that document being filed, to him being arrested? Those are the things that matter. If people really want everyone to be treated equally in fair court systems, this is the way that we should be approaching this. Now, the documents could lead you to lean one way or another. And that's okay because the documents are based off of evidence collected. We do not currently have a statement from Goddard in order to counteract any of this. And so we need to hear what the other side of the story is. But we're going to go over this first part of the story, which comes from law enforcement via this document. So in this document, it says the report was done by Marina Thrift from the GBI. She's a special agent for the GBI, who on oath says that, to the best of their knowledge and belief, Rodger Quincy Goddard, we're not going to throw in too much personal details in here, did in the county aforesaid commit the offense of false statements and writings in said county on Wednesday, February the 14th, 2024. So these charges go back a bit. They are alleging that they were committed at 12 o'clock in the afternoon between 12:08 and 12:24. The place of the occurrence of the said offense is 351 Thomas H. Fryer in Coffee County against the laws of the state of Georgia. Now, Rodger Goddard did commit false statements and writings when he knowingly and willingly made a false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement or representation with the intent to conceal or cover up a scheme in a matter of jurisdiction of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, to wit, during the course, and we'll break this down for everybody too, but I want to read you the language of the document as well. During the course of an interview conducted by the GBI special agents, Goddard stated that he did not go to Wiregrass College and Career Academy on February the 8th, 2024, for the purpose of interacting with victim one, that's who we're going to call this person, with their vehicle. As the interview continued, Goddard continued to make false statements and purposefully mislead the investigators to include that he was not involved in the place of a suspected tracking device on victim one's vehicle, had no knowledge of a suspected tracking device being placed on victim's vehicle, and that he had not been hired by someone to do this. That's not what the document says. The document says he was not hired by Kyle Waldron for the purpose of performing private investigative services. Okay, let's address that. So, first of all, who the heck is Kyle Waldron is probably, some people's question. And then there will be locals who tune in and they know who he is. We'll get into that in just a second, because this is a whole thing. And I'm sure it won't be the last thing that we report on it, because I have questions. I have lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. Just like Emily D. Baker, we have questions here, and we're going to ask them. And if we don't get answers, we're going to FOIA until we do. We'll investigate. We'll look into it. We'll find out what we need to know. So, essentially, let's go over here real quick and open this up. I think it's very interesting that he, comes out and says, "No, I was not hired by this person for performing these acts." Now, it's hard to read too much into it without us having the full statement. We'll FOIA everything we can. It's an ongoing investigation. We're not going to be able to get our hands on certain things, certain pieces of information right now, and that's for the betterment of everyone, there is a victim at the center of this. So it is best to protect this investigation as much as possible, but we will get what we can along the way as it becomes, safe and comfortable for law enforcement to be able to release that information, or when the case is closed. We do not know yet what is going to happen. He has received bond. We don't know what's going to go forward, if he's going to eventually plead guilty, go to trial, whatever the case may be. If he goes to trial, we'll get people in the courtroom. So the city manager, or sorry, the city marshal, is one of his many titles. Like I said, he has the post law enforcement background. Um, he would know and be very aware of what he can and cannot legally do. The interesting thing about this whole situation is there was a way to do this legally without anybody getting in trouble. I'm not going to just go blatantly loud and proud tell everybody how to do it, but there was a way. So we're also going to give him a dumb criminal award, because as a law enforcement officer and as somebody who is acting as a faux private investigator, should and would know that you cannot perform certain actions once you receive a badge or a title of these varieties, such as he has had and currently holds. That being said, what he did was completely illegal. You cannot just go up to a citizen's vehicle as a law enforcement officer or an official of the government and place a tracking device on someone's vehicle. It gets a lot worse, though. Buckle up. So if you scroll down in the document, we get to the other charge as well. Let's see here. And it also alleges that all of this happened within the same time frame in February, February 9th through the 14th, I want to say. So it appears that he was likely questioned about this on the 14th, lied to police about the interaction. GBI was eventually brought into the situation, and they probably further investigated and tracked down the details that were needed in order to bring this arrest forward. So, as for the surveillance, Rodger Goddard did commit, and this is straight from the document, did commit eavesdropping, surveillance, or intercepting communications which invades privacy of another, divulging private messages, when he knowingly and willfully invaded the privacy of victim one on behalf of Kyle Waldron by utilizing a global positioning monitoring device covertly placed on the victim's vehicle to record the activities, specifically the movements of victim. This was done without the victim's consent or knowledge and includes alerts set up to notify Goddard's phone whenever the victim left or entered the curtilage of specific places, including the private locations. Let me loud and clear this one right here, and please know this is why her name is not being said. Whenever the victim left or entered specific places, including private locations out of the public view. Why do you think this person was being tracked? If the allegations are true against Mr. Goddard, ask yourself that. I don't need to tell you. You ask yourself that. You be the jury on this. But when you're the jury, you have to agree to two things. You have to agree to the first thing, that you'll be unbiased and that you're not going to presume anyone's guilt or innocence going into the case. That you're, two, going to base your opinion after all facts and evidence have been presented to you. So as a community, that's how you should be looking at this. Whether you see him as a good man or you see him as a bad man. Good people are capable of bad things. Bad people are capable of good things. It happens all the time. How often do we hear, I never thought that person would do something like that? Hear it all the time. Allegedly, according to these documents, Goddard had been hired by Kyle Waldron to spy on someone and track their movements. But insane. Eavesdropping, surveillance, or intercepting communications which invades privacy of another, divulging private messages is what he is charged with. Because not only did he track and trace somebody's movements, but then he shared those very specific, tailored movements with the person when he is not legally, lawfully allowed to do so. As an officer, you must use the court to get permission. Court is daddy in these situations, and you got to go to daddy and ask him. And if he says no, you can't go to mom. Just doesn't work that way. And you can't decide on your own that you're going to do it because it's not lawful. And they're both dumb criminals, clearly, because there is a way they could have done this and never been traced. Again, I'm not going to put that out there, but there is a way. And clearly they were too dumb to realize that. So not good. I mean, that's the way it goes, though. Your dumbest criminals are the ones who get caught. However, that is all alleged. These details are damning, in my opinion. They don't look good for him. And where he went, they have surveillance footage. Now, let me go over to the GBI real quick, and I want to read you the statement from the GBI. So the GBI says that it has arrested the City of Douglas code enforcement officer charged with surveillance, which invades privacy and false statements. The GBI has arrested and charged Rodger Goddard, aged 50, of Douglas, Georgia, with surveillance which invades the privacy of another and false statements. The Coffee County Board of Education Police Department asked the GBI to investigate in February 2024. Now, I'd like to stop right there for a second because did you hear what I just heard? The Coffee County Board of Education, so not the Douglas City Police, the Coffee County Board of Education Police Department asked the GBI to investigate. Why do you think they didn't go through their local police? Why do you think they didn't go through their sheriff's department? I've got a little feeling why they didn't. Some jurisdictions in the United States do now have what they call a Board of Education Police Department in order to help them with some of the things that they deal with within their school communities and also to help with security and things like that of schools. Not everywhere has one at this point, but a lot of places do. I was a little shocked to see that Coffee County did have one, and thank God they did because they were able to have another route. The victim would have had another route of somewhere to go to report this, since this did happen on school property. So they asked the GBI to investigate in February of 2024 after someone notified them that Goddard and another person were observed putting a tracking device on someone's vehicle located on school property. Goddard was employed as the code enforcement officer for the city of Douglas and was a Georgia post certified law enforcement officer. That's what I mentioned earlier. Post certified. He was certified as a law enforcement officer. GBI agents took Goddard into custody at the Douglas City Hall without incident on May 16, 2024, and he was booked into the Coffee County Jail. Anyone with information, and we mean anyone, don't we, is encouraged to contact the GBI Regional Investigative Office in Douglas at 912-389-4103. Anonymous tips can also be submitted by calling 1-800-597-TIPS, which is also 1-800-597-8477. That goes to the GBI. So there's a few more details, and that is a press release straight from the GBI about this incident. Now, let's keep going forward with this. This story has a lot of different things, but I want to tell you about a little side story that has to do with Goddard really quick. Um, like I said, we're going to stay unbiased, but we look at everything. We look at all the facts, right? So here's part of the facts. He was included in a lawsuit several years ago, and it was actually the lawsuit was not directed at the city or the police department, but it was actually directed straight at Rodger, Goddard, and two other men. Now, what happened was, I don't know, should I just read straight from the document or should we summarize? Let's see here. See if I have the document up here. Yeah, I do. So we'll just read straight from the document real quick. So this is from this is from the United States District Court for the Southern District of Georgia, Waycross Division. And the defendants in the case is Rodger Goddard, John Shealy, and Pat Doherty. Buckle up. This is a crazy one, guys. The plaintiff contends that he was arrested without probable cause and that defendants used excessive force during his arrest. Specifically, plaintiff asserts that defendants broke down the door and entered the All Saints Temple Church in Douglas, Georgia, while the plaintiff was inside, sprayed mace in his face, and arrested him. And right here I stopped and thought, oh no, is this another horrific story of a church official doing something awful and now they're complaining about the fact that they were arrested? Not so much. Plaintiff states that the defendants told the plaintiff to get down, and when they entered the church, but instead of getting on the ground, plaintiff asked the officers what they wanted. Seems like a normal question when officers just completely barge in your front door of your church. Plaintiff claims all three defendants sprayed him with mace at one time all over his body. After being sprayed, plaintiff states that he ran out of the church, was chased by defendants, and was tackled and handcuffed by the defendants, Doherty and Shealy. Defendants claim that they had probable cause to enter the church and arrest the plaintiff because, are you ready? I hope you're ready. Because they smelled gas. They busted down the door of a church and essentially attacked a man for no good reason, without simply just walking up and questioning him first. They busted down the doors of a church and they arrested a man with mace, tackled him to the ground because they smelled gas. What? What is going on? Why would you do that? That makes absolutely zero sense. And this is part of some documents that we have found on his police record. So there's that. There are other things and things that we need to FOIA request in order to properly go over, because there are things that date back further that do not have documentation online that we can easily get to at the moment. So we're going to have to FOIA some things, and we're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and FOIA those items so that we can go over them and everybody can kind of get a full picture, because maybe people are surprised what they may know about the officials within their local government that they think highly of. And this isn't to degrade anyone. It is just to be transparent about the fact that we really need to be a little more unbiased and not prop people up too much. Respect people, be kind to people, be friendly to people, but we have to remember that everyone is human. It's just facts. And when we do that, we're able to hold each other accountable without it emotionally hurting so bad. This is hard stuff in small communities where people People know each other. People are close to each other. I get that. But when you allow for people to get away with abusing their authority, there's no end to that. You can't say, "Well, we'll put a full stop when someone is hurt. We'll put a full stop when." No, no, you just have to put a full stop on it, no matter what. No matter how good or bad the person is, no matter how much you do or don't like them. So I think that that covers some information when it comes to actually, I also want to mention one other thing. While I was searching, I found this really crazy story that I may have to go over because it's long, but essentially, the Douglas Police Department at one time had falsely accused this couple, or I won't say falsely accused right now. We'll say they alleged that this couple may have been involved with arson, I believe it was. And so they went in and they seized a bunch of stuff from the couple. And in that stuff, they had stolen pornographic videos out of the home, it seems. I'm reading through the documents and it's pretty interesting, I guess you could say. Mostly disturbing. That would be better. So it's a really long document and there's a lot to the whole case. If people are interested in that, maybe you should let me know if you want to know about what, that time at band camp when the Douglas Police Department was stealing porn from citizens. Yeah, we could go over that if anybody wants to. Anyhow, let's move forward with describing the other part of this whole issue with the charges against Goddard. Who the heck is Kyle Waldron, who allegedly hired Goddard to do this? Well, Kyle Waldron is on his way to federal prison. He was found guilty of stealing a very substantial money from the government in the way of stealing COVID relief funds. Now, it's really interesting the way that he did it. There are a lot of people out there who got COVID relief funds, and not all of it went to what it was supposed to. Some people made it a money grab, though, a big one. And Kyle Waldron made it a money grab, clearly. He used multiple businesses in order to file for COVID relief funds. So, for people who are not aware, COVID relief funds during COVID and the pandemic, businesses were allowed to ask the government for COVID relief, and they would get a nice fat check to help hold them over, pay employees, keep up with stock, do whatever they needed to do in order to stay afloat, hopefully, as a business until the pandemic started to subside economically. So that was the whole point. What he did was he asked for a good amount of money. Here, let me just read you really quickly part of. I have a document for his charges. Essentially, though, that is what happened, and he pled not guilty initially, and then later he entered a guilty plea. And he has now this has been a year ago. He was charged a year ago, and now he has received his sentence, which will be like 15 months, I believe it was, in federal prison. He, however, that was on April the 11th that he received that sentence, and he does not have to turn himself in, it appears, until next month on the 11th. So that being the case, we see that he does have a placeholder on the BOP website. The BOP website is basically just the federal inmate website. So he does have a placeholder there. It says he's not in custody. So to my knowledge, he has not turned himself in yet. He's still out there roaming around for anybody that might need to know. But Kyle Waldron, like I said, he is accused of, let me pull that up here. He is accused of stealing a lot of COVID relief money. So here we go. I just pulled it up. Kyle Waldron, 59, of Douglas, Georgia, was sentenced to 15 months in prison after pleading guilty to money laundering. Um, skip past this. During the investigation, federal agents seized $326,461 from Waldron's bank accounts, which is subject to forfeiture. The judge ordered him to serve 3 years of supervised release upon completion of his prison term. So 15 months in prison and then 3 years of supervised release thereafter. There is no parole in the federal system. Kyle Waldron committed, this is from the statement from the DOJ. Kyle Waldron committed brazen fraud and theft from pandemic relief funds. We continue to collaborate with law enforcement partners to hold accountable those who would illegally access these funds to fuel their own greed. Enacted by Congress in 2020 was the COVID Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act that provided more than $650 billion to financially struggling small businesses during COVID. So that is essentially what happened. It says also that, as described in court documents and testimony, an investigation by the IRS commenced, and the U.S. Secret Service determined that Waldron submitted at least 20 different PPP, which was personal protective equipment, basically, I think is what it was, applications on behalf of multiple businesses and individuals. So he committed fraud in a variety of ways in order to do this. To obtain loan funds, Waldron submitted multiple fake IRS forms in support of the funding applications and falsely claimed large numbers of non-existent employees and inflated revenues in fraudulent requests for PPP funding. Those applications resulted in an SBA disbursements of more than $1.3 million. Yep. So, bring it around full circle here for a moment. Goddard was hired by somebody who was just gotten on the hook for a $1.3 million fraud scheme. He was hired to illegally track somebody. Why would you do that, I wonder? You're the jury. That's for you to decide. This is your community. You don't want stuff like this going on in your community. Trust me. No matter how much you do or don't like the people who are doing it, you don't want this. Things like this spiral. Because when people are not held accountable, it's just like a child. We're all human. We all stem from being a child. And that's what we fall back on. We are just so patterned. It is ridiculous. And what does a child do in these situations? If you don't correct your child's behavior, if you don't let them know what right from wrong is, if you don't let them know to lean into their morals, to lean into their ethics, what do? If they do something wrong and you don't say anything about it, what do? They're going to keep doing it, and then they do worse things, right? Or they push the boundaries more, or they get a little more, let's see if we can get away with this. Let's see if we can do that. You don't want that. You do not want that. So anyhow, I really appreciate everybody listening to me ramble on and on about this. I didn't realize I've already been talking for almost 40 minutes about this. However, I appreciate people listening. Really appreciate anybody also who catches this on the replay, because this is important stuff, and we need to make sure that we just eradicate this as much as possible. Goddard there's been no mention of him being removed from his post as the code enforcement officer or anything else. I do feel that his involvement here is very disturbing, and I feel like that should be looked at immediately, whether or not he can effectively serve, if he's willing to do things that. Now, I will say this: at the time of this, would have been in February of this year, things were still in the works for the sentencing and all that for Kyle Waldron. Aside from that, everything was done though. Kyle Waldron received his charges a year ago. What I'm saying is Goddard likely would have known all of that. Um, and you know what? I extend my offer to him, just like I said, if the victim wants to come forward and say, that I am the victim in this case, if they want us to say their name, if they want to come on and have a conversation about what's going on, we're open to everything. Same to Rodger. If Rodger Goddard wanted to come on here and say, look, you got this all wrong, come on, let us know. Um, I am completely open and unbiased until I see all the facts and evidence. And I would love to hear the other side of the story because right now it doesn't look good. It does not look good for Rodger Goddard. And I'm not sure how he plans, to defend himself. However, I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the story here because these are very disturbing details. Uh, Kyle Waldron is on his way to spend over a year in jail in federal prison, um, and he would have known that, and that's very, very concerning. The victim in this case has filed for an order of protection against Kyle Waldron. I do not yet see anything on the docket for a protective order involving Mr. Goddard. I have only seen the one for Kyle Waldron, which was filed fairly recently. So I think there's reason for this person, this victim, for their facts and evidence in this to be heard and given a chance, for people to be unbiased with their opinions on what happened here. People are very forward on social media right now about what they think about this arrest. And you may just want to back up for a minute and take a look at what's going on here. Like I said, good people do bad things, bad people do good things. We're all human. It's a part of the process. It's a part of the experience. And we have to be willing to be open to that. So, to the family of Goddard who was commenting on that post, I meant what I meant. I said on that post that, no matter who it is, everyone is entitled to the same accountability. I didn't say it in exactly those words, but that's essentially what I said. Everyone is entitled to the same accountability. It doesn't matter how proud we are or anything else. If somebody did something to your son, I'm sure you would want to ensure that was handled as well. So that's pretty much it. That's the story. That's as much as we can get into it for tonight, at least. Kyle Waldron, like I said, has several businesses in the area. We need to get into that. We really need to get into that. There's surprisingly a lot going on in the Douglas area. So I appreciate everybody joining in. I appreciate everybody listening to this. Send good vibes to the victim in this case. I do not want you know, anything to happen because of all of this. And it sounds like a really scary situation. If somebody was tracking and tracing me and telling someone who I may have been in fear of, that they're essentially telling this person anytime I'm in certain places and specifically when I am out of public view, what? That's terrifying, and it's wrong. It's so wrong. Um, Domestic violence is also on the rise, and these are huge red flags. So, again, I extend my invitation for anyone in this story to come and, give us a statement, whether it's written, verbal, come on the podcast, have a discussion. Just so you know, when we do interview people or speak with people, we do it pre-recorded. It is not live. I do not put things like that in case something's said that is case sensitive. We don't want to just have that blurted out on a live. So it is a pre-recorded thing. So it's more like just a conversation with me. If anybody chooses to do that, you are more than welcome to. I'd be happy to speak with anybody in this case, including Mr. Rodger Goddard. Goddard, rather. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing your name. If any of Goddard's family would like to come forward and speak, or any of the victim's family wants to come forward with the permission of the victim, happy to speak to anybody. So thank you again for listening to what we needed to go over tonight. And keep your eyes, keep your eyes open, keep your mind open when things happen, and keep your community accountable, kind, and as as ethical and moral as possible, because these situations can very much spiral out into tragic events, and we see that happen over and over in the news. So when we see something like this and a document has a red flag, and maybe, we can stop it from getting worse, that's that's what we should take pride in. We should take pride in being able to check ourselves, no matter who's involved. So anyhow, everybody have a great night. That's pretty much what I have for tonight. I'm sure I'll be back with more. We're going to have some more documents coming in regarding Rodger Goddard. Also regarding, we'll have news and updates regarding Kyle Waldron as well. So stay tuned with us. We have other South Georgia news that we will be reporting on, but just stick with it. We appreciate everybody listening and taking the time to hear about this. All right. Have a good night.